we are approaching the culmination of the Russian summer offensive, with Pokrovsk as once again its main goal. They made a notable advance there in July, and have been trying to break Ukraine's resistance in many other sectors of the battlefield. Meanwhile, we have witnessed two huge shifts in American strategy regarding the war in Ukraine in the space of less than 2 weeks. How will the Russian offensive and the new/old American strategy impact the war? Check out this video to find out. The strategic initiative on the battlefield remains in Russia's hands. They are attacking along the river Oskil in the Turgetsk and Pokrovsk sectors, and have recently renewed their attempts to advance on the Zaporizhia front. The Russian army is overstretching the Ukrainian army, suffering from manpower shortages by attacking in many areas simultaneously. The pressure on the Ukrainian army on the battlefield is combined with almost daily drone and missile attacks terrorizing Ukrainian cities and civilians. In July, Russia carried out several major air attacks with 300 to 400 Shahed drones, and the Russian production rates of Shahed drones may increase to a level allowing them to launch 1,000 to 2,000 of those drones in a single day. The goal here is to break the will of Ukrainian society to resist, and capture as much territory as possible before the Ukrainian defences crumble under the relentless but costly war of attrition waged by Russia. Such is the calculation of Vladimir Putin. He has pursued this strategy since his initial blitzkrieg failed, but besides a few breakthroughs here and there, such as the victories in Avdiivka, Ocheretina and Velika Novosilka, the Russian progress has been meagre. Particularly when looking at the situation on the battlefield and the Russian advance from a bird's-eye view, it is clear that they have not achieved much. Still, the Russians are currently making another push. They have made a significant advance northeast of Pokrovsk. In July, they captured Rezina, Koptieva and Novotoretske, along with advancing in Novoekonomichne, Krasny Liman, Mayak and Popov Yar. They crossed the Kazany Torets River and are moving towards Rudinska to capture the 205-15 highway. Losing control over this highway would practically doom Minaret, the largest town east of Pokrovsk. It would also mean that the E50 highway would be the sole major supply route to Pokrovsk. Ukrainian sources blame this setback on the general lack of sufficient manpower in that sector, and yet more confusion caused by a lack of coordination due to the currently ongoing transition from a brigade system to a corps system. The Russians were also attacking from the west of Pokrovsk. Here they advanced towards Svirove and north of Shevchenko. On July 22nd, the Russian saboteurs even managed to enter Pokrovsk proper from Svirove, although this unit was reportedly later destroyed. Still, the trend in this sector for the Ukrainian army is worrying. The Russians are closing in on Pokrovsk from all sides, along with fighting to capture one of the supply lines leading to the town. It seems that the Ukrainian army can only change the situation here by mustering troops for a significant counterattack. But given all the complaints about the lack of manpower, this does not seem plausible. The Russian army also continued its westward advance on the line from Idachina to Zeleno Pole. Here, Russian progress has been very steady over the past few months, and they are approaching the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. The immediate target area of this attack is not clear, but this offensive puts additional pressure on the Ukrainian units on the Zaporizhia front, and further stretches the capabilities of the Ukrainian defences. In the Toretsk-Konstantinivka sector, the Russian army is still 15 to 20 kilometers away from the first town of the Donbas fortress belt of Ukraine, Kostiantynivka. They have captured Yablonivka, Leonidivka and Delivka in this area, and it looks like, after a bloody and long battle, they have also forced the Ukrainian army out of Toretsk. The Russians have also restarted their attack on the Zaporizhia front in July. Initially, it may have seemed like a full-scale offensive, but at this point it looks like a localized tactical assault in the westernmost sector of the front to overstretch the Ukrainians. On July 8th, the Russian army captured Kamianska, but that is about the only news from their assault on the Zaporizhia front. Along the Oskil River, the Russians have expanded their bridgehead west of the river near Krasnopersha, Dovhenka and Radkivka. They have also advanced northwest of Kupiansk and towards Toska. They are now very close to the PO7 highway west of Kupiansk. Control over this portion of the highway would make the supply of Kupiansk and the Ukrainian bridgehead on the east of the Oskil practically impossible. The situation here is threatening for the Ukrainian army. The Russian army also broke through another border area of the Kharkiv Oblast in July, capturing Milove. Most probably, this attack serves to force the Ukrainians to divert some of their forces from the Oskil front. Earlier, the Russian 40th and 155th Naval Infantry Brigades were making good progress in the Sumy Oblast, but since the start of the summer, their offensive has been halted. In July, the Ukrainians inflicted major losses on the Russian units here and liberated Kindrativka. The Russian offensive in Sumy resembles their second Kharkiv offensive. Initial success, which is then halted by the Ukrainians. The Russians are in control of a small buffer zone, but their prospects on this front do not look too promising at the moment. So, even though the Russians capture more territory here and there, they are still unable to alter the situation on the battlefield on the strategic level. They are pouring a lot of resources, specifically their manpower, into this. The Economist claims that 31,000 Russian soldiers have been killed since May 1st. According to the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, since the start of 2025, 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. These massive losses are not commensurate with the Russian advances on the battlefield. But it is clear that Putin is pushing hard to gain something significant this year, because there are worrying signs for Russia. So far, the Russian economy has been able to withstand the sanctions regime thanks to its giant oil reserves. But this may be changing now. Earlier, Putin announced that Russia may decrease its defense spending in 2026. The Russian economy minister, Maxim Reshetnikov, stated that Russia is on the verge of slipping into a recession. At least 3 major Russian banks may be forced to ask the central bank for a bailout, according to Bloomberg. Many non-military sectors of the Russian economy are in a pretty bad shape, as the government is prioritizing resources for military production and recruitment of men into the army. There have been many reports predicting the demise of the Russian economy throughout the war, yet thus far it has been able to fund Russia's war of occupation. Would Trump's latest U-turn help put further pressure on the Russian army and economy? Well, the truth is that it's sometimes impossible to predict what Trump is going to do next with regards to Ukraine, but he certainly seems angry at Russia and Putin right now. In early July, the US government announced a pause of military supply to Ukraine under the pretext of prioritizing America's weapons stockpiles. But apparently Trump got unhappy with Russia's constant air attacks on Ukraine, which was a clear sign that Putin did not intend to negotiate the ending of the war in good faith. So on July 10th, Trump announced that the United States will restart military supplies to Kyiv. We're sending weapons to NATO, and NATO is paying for those weapons 100%. So what we're doing is the weapons that are going out are going to NATO, and then NATO is going to be giving these weapons to Ukraine, and NATO is paying for those weapons. Then on July 14th, during his meeting with the NATO Secretary General Rutte, Trump announced that 17 Patriots will be sent to Ukraine. That most probably means 17 launchers. Trump also reiterated that the US will send billions of dollars worth of military supplies to Ukraine, for which NATO will pay. Lastly, Trump warned that if Putin does not end the war within 50 days, he will impose 100% secondary tariffs on Russia's trade partners. Later in the month, Trump decreased the deadline for Putin to 10 to 12 days. Then he stated that the United States will hit India with 25% tariffs plus penalty for buying Russia's oil and weapons. Trump's strategy here is clear. He wants to dissuade countries like India and China from buying oil from Russia and engaging in other trade relations to damage the Kremlin's ability to wage war. The EU's 18th sanction package, agreed upon on July 18th, follows the same goal. The EU has now lowered the oil price cap from $60 to $47.6, along with taking additional steps to curb Russia's ability to profit from oil, such as imposing further restrictions on their shadow fleet. The scale of impact of these measures, and whether Russia will be able to circumvent these new restrictions too, will be known in the upcoming months. Apart from the promising Patriot air defense batteries, Trump has also reportedly agreed with Zelensky to invest in Ukraine's drone industry and purchase Ukrainian drones. Later in the month, the US government approved sales of Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and spare parts for them worth $150 million, and $172 million worth of Hawk Phase 3 missile systems. For the first time since Biden left the White House, we see public announcements of weapon deliveries to Ukraine from the United States. It is a huge turnaround from the embarrassing February meeting in the White House. Let's see how much this rapprochement between the United States and Ukraine lasts. For now, it is a massive win for Ukraine's embattled air defense. At this point, the priority for Ukraine in terms of military production or purchase of foreign weapons is to bolster its air defenses and find an economically viable way of neutralizing the Shahed threat. On July 3rd, Zelensky announced that Ukraine signed an agreement on long-term partnership with the American engineering company Swift-Beat, with an aim to purchase hundreds of thousands of interceptor drones in 2025, designed specifically to fight Shaheds. On July 10th, Britain announced an agreement with Ukraine envisaging the delivery of more than 5,000 air defense interceptors produced by Thales. On July 25th, the German military manufacturer Hensoldt stated that they will provide TRML-4D and Spexer radar systems for Ukraine's air defense. Along with that, the Netherlands and Germany have announced their intention to fund and support the production of interceptor drones by Ukrainian companies. In recent months, European support to Ukraine's defense industry has been a crucial component of their effort to continue helping the Ukrainian army fight. According to the German media, Berlin will finance the production of over 500 Luti long-range drones in Ukraine. Denmark signed an agreement with Ukraine, envisaging to support Ukrainian defense companies. The EU agreed to expand the relationships between the European Defence Fund and Ukrainian military producers under the Brave Tech EU initiative. Canada will also invest an unspecified amount of money into Ukraine's defence industry, while, according to Ukrainian officials, Norway will purchase 400 million euros worth of drones produced in Ukraine. On top of that, Sweden committed to supply 10 new Archer artillery systems. Latvia stated that it will send 42 Patria armoured personnel carriers. Czechia will train 8 more Ukrainian pilots for F-16 jets, and Germany will send 200,000 Gepard shells, along with other military aid committed to Kyiv. So, the renewed commitment by the United States to sell military supplies to Ukraine has been the best news for Kyiv in July. Combined with the continued European supplies and increased investment into the Ukrainian military production industry, it brings foreign military support to Ukraine to its highest level since the summer of 2023. And such a level of military support at the time of Kyiv's greatest need also gives considerable leverage to Ukraine's allies. On July 22nd, the Ukrainian parliament passed a controversial law, putting the country's independent anti-corruption structures under the direct supervision of the government, citing security concerns. This prompted the biggest demonstration in Ukraine since the start of the war, as thousands demanded the reversal of this decision. Many feared that this was a step back to authoritarianism, which is such an enticing thing to do for governments in a time of war. Still, the pressure from its people and from the European capitals prompted Zelensky to reverse the decision a couple of days later. Ukrainian society remains resilient and demanding of its government even in times of war. Meanwhile, Russia continues to wage its costly war of attrition and terrorizes Ukrainian cities with regular air attacks, hoping that this strategy will sooner rather than later break the Ukrainian will to resist. Lastly, let's look at visually documented equipment losses suffered by both parties as of July 31st, brought to you by the Oryx blog. Russia has lost at least 4,082 tanks, 10,090 vehicles, 302 command posts and communication stations, 2,095 artillery systems and vehicles, 163 aircraft, and 159 helicopters. Ukraine has lost at least 1,232 tanks, 4,924 vehicles, 57 command posts and communication stations, 972 artillery systems and vehicles, 110 aircraft, and 52 helicopters. Further updates on the Russian invasion of Ukraine are on the way. If you don't want to miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.